Welcome to the Roniel and DaRon podcast show. I'm DaRon.
And I'm Roniel.
Reservations tend to be incredibly poor. Prisons tend to be incredibly poor. Counties with prisons in them tend to be incredibly poor. The poorest region in the United States outside of Native American reservations, and I'm of course in all of this discussion excluding U.S. territories, like Puerto Rico, which of course is insanely poor, or American Samoa, which is even more impoverished. So excluding those, if we talk strictly about the United States, as most people think of it, you have the reservations, which are supposed to be sovereign, but they're not. They're not allowed to do anything they want. They're not sovereign, and that has been shown in court multiple times. They're sovereign when it's convenient and not when it isn't. The other poorest region is not inner cities. It's actually Appalachia. Then you have inner cities and things of that nature. And I bring all of this up because it comes to today's topic, and that is college. And the reason why I'd like to have a conversation about college, and specifically paying for college, how much it's worth, and whether or not college should be federally and state funded to a T as far as public education is concerned, is because I strongly would argue that our current system further divides the two classes. And I say two because the middle class is disappearing, and there is a lot of basis for this. Wages have been stagnant up until the pandemic for 40 years, meaning wages had not risen to any degree since the 1980s, since 1980, since Ronald Reagan came to power. So if wages haven't risen, why does college keep getting more and more expensive?
It's more and more expensive, but and I'm not trying to say that I'm one of those, but I do think that education should be free, especially now that since everything is open and you can go find you can see everything online, even though you see everything. And as you said, wages are not getting higher. And now remember when the new, what was it called? You know what I'm trying to say? The low wages were set. I can't
Oh,
remember what they call it.
you're talking about the minimum wage under the
Minimum
New
wage.
Deal?
Yeah. Now minimum wage used to be what, seven? Well, it probably was even worse back then, but like $7 to $8. Now you making $13, 13, 14, 15. You're in the minimum wage area.
Yeah.
But we're not growing. Things are not. We're not getting higher wages, but everything is going up. Not even from schools, but milk, food, everything. Everything is starting to inflate.
Well, and I think you're right, and a large reason for that is the United States has this. There is a strong undercurrent where people believe that if you work hard enough, you too can become wealthy. The problem with that, yeah.
But they were born in wealth.
Right, that's exactly right. So if you look at all of the rich people all of the rich people today, all of them were born into it. They all had wealthy family, all of them. And it has been this way. Actually, the last poor person probably was more like Carnegie, who literally beat people and killed them and then stole their factories. So, I mean, him and Rockefeller, probably not good examples because they were both incredibly violent men. And then, of course, you had the Vanderbilt, again, violence. And that's what they were using back then. That's how they got so wealthy. And you're right, rags to riches by literally killing people. but but we haven't had a case like that in almost forever. It's been so long. And there are many reasons for this. So right now, in the 1950s, 60s, and into the 70s, we had this huge economic boom. Of course, World War II had ended. So you had all of these men come back from war. Many who actually had oof, many who actually had issues of, must be puberty.
You don't need. You sure you don't need no water?
Probably, but I'll
I,
forego it.
I'm about to say it. I'm with you, but I'm at least keeping it together.
I know, seriously. I don't do well with pollution, and apparently Ohio is incredibly polluted.
Oh yeah, it's horrible. And it gets worse every year.
Yeah. Anyway, so when we look at that boon, the big thing that occurred wasn't World War II and this massive ramp up and government spending. It was the GI Bill. All of these vets came back and they all got free college. And then college was still either free or incredibly low cost when you or my parents were young and going to college.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't until the 1980s that the federal government started to turn off that tap and started to slowly but surely defund, because that's what they're really trying to do, is they're trying to defund public education in favor of parochial schools and things of that nature, so your private schools, which would be very bad because that would further the gulf between rich and poor. But if the United States wants another massive economic boon that actually helps the country, because people think, they look back at the 1980s, 90s, and 2000s and they say, but the stock market was doing so well. And they're right, the stock market was doing well because CEOs were raking in bigger and bigger pay and all of this other crazy stuff because they were getting more profit. But they were getting more profit by cutting jobs, by cutting pay, by not having pay increase with inflation. And that's why the median wage has not, in fact, kept up with inflation and has been stagnant for, again, if you ignore the pandemic, which jacked up wages for some people, but so many people lost their job, it's a moot point anyway. If you ignore that, wages had not increased for 40 years. And even if you count that, that didn't change until 2000. Wages didn't go up until 2000. So it's still 40 years.
Yeah.
So then people talk about, well, college should be free. And college did used to be free. And when it wasn't free, it was next to free. And much of Europe has free college or low cost college. I don't know why we can't go back to it.
I don't know why. Well, we know why.
Yeah,
I mean,
we do.
let me even get to something that is even worse because, the government wants control of it. And, it's all about money.
Yeah.
Right now, like they don't care about the people. It is just insane how it is pulling teeth trying to get them to even pass law. Now, just think about something I heard this morning. And this is going back into my thing of why I feel about education and stuff. So today I just heard with all of the PPP fraud that's going on in the news, they're saying that everybody who's working has to pay for that. You screwed up and we have to pay for your screw ups out of our pocket, but we don't get more money to be consistent with all the money we got to pay out.
Right.
And we're not getting any value out of any, and then when you go to school nowadays, the teachers don't really care. They hate their jobs because they don't get paid enough to do their job.
Right.
So you get a shitty learning and you pay all this money for shitty learning when half of the time you have to go and learn the shit yourself. So if I can go and learn this shit on my own, why would I pay you?
Right. Well, and that's why, I don't know if you've noticed, but there seems to be a growing movement where they're saying, oh, well, you shouldn't require a degree. And this ties actually back to our prior discussion about GPAs. So not only were they saying, oh, well, Native Americans, Hispanics, blacks, everyone they don't like, except Asians, because they can't say anything about Asians. We explained why. Is too stupid and they're all dumber than white people, so they get lower GPAs. So you have to throw out GPAs. Well, now they're saying the same thing about degrees. Throw out the degrees. Don't require a degree. Have you ever tried hiring someone in an actual computer science, and by that I mean not server, especially Windows server administration, but an actual computer science field, role, position, whatever you want to call it, who doesn't have the degree and doesn't have the education or solid work experience. Have you ever tried that?
Yeah, and it did not work out very well. They don't have the knowledge to do the job. They don't even they don't even know what some of the terms. And even if you are a self-taught programmer, it's not the same thing as going
Right.
to school and getting that knowledge, because again, there's going to be some disconnect with things that you may not have known or learned or knew what to look up.
Right.
So, there's a difference between the quality and of education than what you learn, from your own by yourself. So, yeah, I've been to that route, and it's not good.
That's exactly right. I have done the same thing and seen the same thing, and I completely agree. The problem is oftentimes, so if you imagine education in general, knowledge in general as building a wall or a house, people who are self-taught more often than not are missing mortar. And I don't know if you've ever seen yeah, they may have bricks, but you can still push the whole structure down because they're missing an integral part to it. And so they don't understand everything. Now, that's not always the case. We want to be clear. There are obviously exceptions to the rules and all this other stuff. And
Yeah, there's always those outliers.
always, always. But it's important that we be able to speak in broad strokes because otherwise you couldn't say anything.
Right, right.
Hell, even the theory of gravity, you have to broad stroke it because there are special theories to it, addendums because of how it works. And of course, I'm not going to get into all that, but the point being, I think it's absolutely vital for our nation. To me, there are two things that need to occur. We need to correct the education system, period. And that's across all the grades, but it also includes making college either actually low cost for a good education. And the other component, and I know a lot of people are probably going to throw a fit. The other component I would argue is that we need to have a maximum income, maximum wage, however you want to phrase it. There's no reason why someone should be raking in millions or billions of dollars a year. And I understand most C-levels use stock options, but that's still pay. And it's easy enough to work something out. And the reason why I say a maximum wage or what have you is because rather than scalping, and it's okay for me to say that. Actually, did you know scalping was a European practice?
Mm-hmm.
It was not Native American. Native Americans just took it up and ran with it.
Yeah. That's a good one. That's a good
There's
one
a
to know.
pun in there that's really wildly inappropriate considering what we're talking about. But anyway, God, that's actually dark and demented.
Yep, yep, definitely. I was gonna say something about that. Yeah, this disclaimer, DaRon does not scalp people.
Yeah. That's considered violation of the Geneva Convention. You're not allowed to mutilate the corpses. Anyway, so what CEOs and C-levels need to instead be forced to do, and their directors and all of that good stuff, the board, what they need to be forced to do is invest back into the company. And by instead taking, let's say, 500,000, hey, sure, why not? That's fine. 500,000 isn't that big of a disparity. It certainly won't cause the rampant inflation that's going on right now due to CEO pay, which is where a lot of this inflation is coming from. I should say C-level pay and board pay. But if you capped it, then they're forced instead to reinvest in their company. And so now they're forced to upgrade their machinery. So why has manufacturing left the United States? It's not because our workers suck compared to Chinese. It's not workers. It's not because our products suck. I mean, actually they do. But that's because the reason I'm about to get into. It's because US companies invested less and less in the company itself. And so the machines were breaking down. And so now you don't have the machines doing what they should be. And all of this other stuff started just collapsing around it. That's why we lost manufacturing. And the proof is in Germany. The proof is in Japan. The proof is in the fact that China is actually working to move toward a Japanese or German model. They show that high quality manufacturing pays. But if your company isn't reinvesting to fix the machinery, buy new machinery, pay people appropriately, do like Henry Ford did, who's also no saint, then your company is going to slip more and more and more. Your product is going to slip more and more and more. And eventually everyone's going to go through and they're going to say, well, I could buy this Chinese piece of garbage that lasts 5 minutes, or I could buy the American piece of garbage that lasts 6 minutes but costs 3 times as much, or I can buy the German stuff or Japanese stuff, which lasts 10 years and it costs, 10 times the price, but it lasts significantly more. And you know what? They're going to pick one or the other, but they won't pick the American product. And that
Yeah.
is the US economy in a nutshell.
Yeah, it's always seemed to been that way. We're not good at nothing we do. Like that sucks. How can we
Mhm.
be this strong and this powerful but suck at what we do? As we went back into when it comes to new advancements or weaponry or different stuff, like, and especially in the field of where we're in hacking, like you look back, who was the number one?
Yeah.
Germany, like, or just Russia in
Yeah.
general. Like, it's ridiculous. And Japan is way ahead of us. And it's just like, what the hell? Now, I have to say something. Here's another note. You look at your iPhone, Android has been doing all things for years. And you look at your popular iPhone system and you notice that, sorry, pause, wonder quick, my fucking computer's going out. I'm ready.
All right.
So basically, you know how Apple they pushed out all of these old features, and I
Right.
just do not understand. It goes back to the same thing. America, we're just so slow to push out anything that by the time we get to what would have been a good advancement, we're 10 years, 20 years late. And it's just trash once we get it out.
Yeah. Yeah,
You
that's
know,
exactly right. That's exactly right. And contrary to popular belief, it's not red tape due to the EPA and OSHA and all this other stuff. It really comes down to organizations not wanting to pay sufficient amounts to have proper staffing and everything else tied to it. Apple, Microsoft, Facebook, Google, Amazon, they burn people out. We had a discussion on that before. They burn people out on purpose, and they don't pay you according to how much damage they do to you mentally, physically, etc. And especially relative to the prices in their areas. But imagine if I'll give you a good example. So Steve Jobs, he said, "Well, I'm going to go back to the company and I'll just take $1 and pay." And everyone forgets that he at the same time was taking all those stock options, which were worth a lot more than $1 a year. And that's what they do. And that lets them, they then play games with their taxes by then borrowing against that. So they can, for all intents and purposes, say that they had a flat income because they borrowed, say, my income was $100 million and I borrowed $100 million. And now I'm living off of that loan. I get to write off the value of the loan. It's crazy, crazy stuff. But realistically, if we cut that off, then Steve Jobs would have been forced to invest that money in his company. And people would say, well, but if you do all the math, then it would have only worked out to giving an extra $10,000 a year. Yes, but that's one individual. There are a bunch of C-levels, and then there's the board of directors and all this other stuff. Just maximum wage, maximum income, whatever that means, and just slosh the rest of it off. And that won't kill creativity. Not if you have it at half a million or even a million, I don't care. But definitely it shouldn't be in the billions. Definitely it shouldn't be in the 100 millions.
no,
Doesn't
it
make
should
sense.
it should not. definitely shouldn't. But you know they're not going to do that. And, like we saw that, you know, it seems like, and I don't want to say this, people might get mad, but it seems like companies, especially in America, like you think about how I didn't even know that like most companies rule the government in a way. It's like,
Yeah.
you know, they have some hand in this stuff, and if they lose money, then the government loses money.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just crazy. Like it's a doggy dog world. Like they don't care about the people. Companies don't care about you. Nobody cares about you. You know, so and it sucks.
Yeah.
And you know, it's almost to the point like, why can't we create our own free, you know, education if they're not going to give us the education we need? And like I said, with my schooling, and don't get me wrong, I love where I went, but I just felt like I didn't learn much. You pay all this money, you get out of school, and then you just feel like you got raped.
Yeah.
Like I got raped for all this money, and I can't even afford to pay it back.
Yeah.
You know, and then it's not affordable. You know, they tell you what they want you to pay, what you're going. They don't look at, what you can afford. And if you do the income driven payment plan, if your money goes up, they go up.
Yes.
And they don't go up just a couple of notches. They go up 10 times as more. And it's just ridiculous. And there's no standardization on what you should be, able to pay. It's no ceiling. It's just like you're going to pay whatever they tell you. And then the harassment, like they
Right.
don't get anything about the harassment from things. So all this stuff you do for school, we're scared to go to school now. They want to go to school. Like I'm going to be in debt. It's like a new form of slavery.
Yeah.
I'm in debt and I can't get out of it until I die. And even when I'm dead, it's probably not going to go. They're still going to be hounding my family members.
Well, and they privatize. Well, you're exactly right, because those loans can't be forgiven because the federal government privatized that industry decades ago. And then Bush started pushing the federal loans over into the private industry ones. Obama then accelerated that, and that's where you get MOLA, et cetera, et cetera. And then those private student loan organizations went to the federal government and demanded that the laws be written such that they can't be forgiven. You go bankrupt and you're still stuck with the student loans. That's how it works. And for the record, I paid all my student loans off years ago. I want to be very clear. And I am still advocating against high college costs. I'm still advocating against private student loans and against the power that industry has. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, listen, I wish I can pay all of mine off still, going through it, but it's just the fact of the matter is like the decision that I made, not knowing at the time, I got messed over, especially from ICT Tech. That was a disaster, and it's not even my fault, and I can't get out of it.
Right.
They literally did a lot of fraud stuff, and
Yes.
I'm stuck with it. It's like, oh, so what? They fraud you. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, get out of here. Like, no way. You know what I'm saying? And that education, don't get me wrong, the teachers were pretty solid. But when you really look at the quality of the education, and I can't even use that damn degree, like, what? Are you kidding me?
Right.
You can't use it really anywhere. I can use the knowledge. You can't use that anywhere. And it's just ridiculous. And I just feel that the stuff that you're getting is not quality. They try to use the quantity and not really, you're not focused on the quality, they're focused on the quantity. And the quality is not good for what you pay for. Even with Case. No, I'm not trying to put names on it, but all these high-ass schools, and you really look at it, the quality is the same.
Yes, Baldwin Wallace, Case Western Reserve. Oh, so over. Actually, all Ohio schools.
Overrated.
Mm-hmm.
Overrated. And let's not even get on their side. It is horrible. I had to tell people, like, every time somebody comes and asks me, how can I get into cybersecurity? What's a good thing? I say you need to start, even if it's not the best, get a foundation in computer science, because that would take you a long way to get into cybersecurity program. That is really not, it doesn't make sense.
I completely agree.
Like most of the cybersecurity programs are business.
Yeah.
Like a business administration type of thing.
Yes.
It's not really focused on what the things you need to know, especially from a technical aspect.
Yes.
So
yes, they're all too high level.
Right. If you want to be good at this, you're going to have computers.
Yeah.
And computer science at that, or at least computer engineering, something.
Right. Electrical engineering, computer science, maybe computer engineering.
Yeah. Oh man, I see that. We're definitely gonna have to have a topic between electrical. What can I see whether you roll your eyes for the electronic engineering?
No, that doesn't get as hard an eye roll. They're okay. They're respectable.
Okay. Yeah, hey, I'm an electronic engineer. You
Okay.
can't do that. All right. I can understand the computer thing now. I
Yeah.
definitely have to have a side conversation because that everybody has an issue with computer engineering world. But um I do have some background electrical and electronic, but mainly focus on electronics. But computer engineering,
Yeah. That's the one that you go to if you can't do any of the others.
but don't you think that computer engineering kind of bit like they merged off, but they're really just like a little bit of computer science? Like when I look at they really just seem like a computer science course mixed with some electrical stuff, and they try to call it computer engineering.
I think it's computer information systems mixed with
Ah,
the mildest engineering, so that they could say computer engineering. And for anyone who doesn't know, CIS, computer information systems, is a joke degree. Might as well just get a bachelor's in communication.
you know what? It was so funny because I have to just say this. So when I originally went to get my degree, I was trying to get into computer science, right? And regular, just plain old computer science. But the way that the structure didn't give me any flexibility. So they said, "Oh, we're going to put you in the CIS program." I said, "Oh, hell no, you're not. You're not going to put me in no computer information system." What they had was it was two of them. It was CIS, computer information system, and computer information science, um,
um,
which would allow me to bridge off. They
yeah.
wouldn't allow me to bridge off in the traditional computer science, and it was like I don't really care about any of this. I want to kind of bridge off to other things. So in order to make it work, and it was still true computer science. It had every computer science course, but it allowed me to go into engineering and focus more on different stuff. But I still didn't like the name. But it was the most popular thing around because it gave you more flexibility. And most of the computer science students, and I'm not saying this to be mean, but most of the computer science students that I've seen, they were a little pissed off because they didn't have that more flexibility. They were kind of stuck in this one realm, and I kind of hated that.
I think actually, so electrical engineering, they get a lot more kudos because they have that movement and they can either
Yes.
take that engineering route or the computer science route. And now, I think we discussed it before here, and I mentioned when where I went to school, the overlap between the two was next to 100%. In fact, if you wanted to, you could make it 100%. So you could get a your major in computer science, math, physics, and electrical engineering if you wanted to. Now, double majors are silly and triple majors are even dumber, but it's just a money making scheme for colleges and universities. I always thought that was really interesting because to me, either you're going to do electrical engineering or you aren't. You're going to do computer science or you're not. There's no point in doing one or the other because for the most part, they are interchangeable enough. I could take a computer scientist from a good school and have them do engineering. Hey, that's me. I could take an electrical engineer from a good school and have them do programming. That's one of my brothers-in-law. That's what happened with him. It's They're interchangeable degrees. The only difference is one focuses more on the microprocessor level and the other focuses more on high level. One focuses more on a more holistic approach to programming languages rather than just microprocessors. I guess is probably the best way to describe it. But the truth is, like I said, a good one, you get that microprocessor in computer science, and then you get it in electrical engineering, then you get programming, then you also get the hardware. I was doing everything, breadboarding and all that good stuff from my computer science degree. It's just,
I, it's funny because and this is why I say it's funny because as an electron, engineer. I had some electrical stuff too, but I kind of interchanged. And when I was doing electronic engineering or doing some, they wanted to hire me for electrical engineering. I did a lot of transform. Like
Yeah.
a lot of it was the big power plants and working with transformers and different stuff like that. And it was just, it's interchangeable.
Yeah.
And even with programming, I found myself having to spent a lot of time programming microprocessors
Right.
and programming motors to do different things, and you know, doing all designs and boards. Even though I was in at a certain level, a certain point, we went from technician level into the engineer. We learned how to design those circuits and design
Right.
those patterns, those and gates and gates.
Right.
So it was interesting, but get a lot of overlap. That's why it was so easy for me with computer science, because I had both, things. But it's very interesting.
And
And
that's
I
a
think
good program.
it is. I think the only thing that bothers me the most, and I have to say this, is we talked about this before, is those programmable controllers.
Yes.
I don't like the logic there, especially PLCs and ladder logic. I do not like. Do not feel like it's you. They say that you're programming, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to understand it, because I'm like, I had to understand, even though it's like it looks like the switches, you have your switch, or you may have things that look like diodes and different things. It just did not work the same. And it would be easier for me just to program it than it would be ladder logic. And they say ladder logic is supposed to be a lot more simpler, or even just programming in those logic controllers. Like, it was not really good. Like, I do not like it at all. I don't know how you feel about it. Prefer to write my own code and tell it what to do.
See,
Than
and
to,
I'm, it's funny. I'll tell you, for example, I've designed entire CPUs and all of this other crazy stuff and motherboards, and actually created memory and all that good stuff, put all the little transistors together. And I think a lot of the programmable logic anythings are, people try to act like they're more than what they are. I'll
yeah.
just leave it at that. People act like they're more than what they are. And all of this, I think, goes to say that the truth is, a good college education, in a good degree anyway, by good I mean one that you're passionate about, goes a long way. But there's no reason for it to cost as much as it does. Well, I don't understand how people are paying $100,000 for college. My entire college bill, and that included housing, and I was in married housing because I had wife and kids. It cost me less than $30,000.
Yeah, mine's it's funny with mine's at CSU. It's close to, well, I had the 5-year program, but it was close to like 40. It was better than what, and I'm at 30 now, but it was better than uh IGT Tech. You don't want to even know what I came out with that. That's just
Oh,
like,
I know that's like $60,000 job right
yeah,
there.
yeah, 60,000 or more.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, for an associate's degree
Mm-hmm.
or whatever, and I'm going back for a bachelor's degree, and they charge more,
Yeah.
10
Yeah.
times more.
Yeah, and that's why it is important to be very careful where you go. But that just goes back to, why should someone have to be so careful? I don't, especially when you start talking about like your state schools and your public colleges and universities. There are a vast majority of them that are not worth their salt. So why am I getting bamboozled by a state school? That doesn't make any sense, which, especially for the prices. So why not make them tax the wealthy? They've got it.
Yeah, I mean, if that's the case, but then you get to the point that it become the same if you point where you're wealthy. Like, it's like, wow, now they're not taxed for it. But when you really think about it, it's nothing wrong. Like, if I had that much money, I wouldn't mind that, because I would want people to have this, a better education, especially now. Like, I want people to have better education than they have now.
Because you want better workers.
Yes. You want to get better
Especially
workers and smarter.
right, especially if you're in any field that requires any modicum of creativity or intelligence. The smarter the
Yes.
worker, the better the job.
And then you also can build interesting jobs, interesting things.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to get people interested in things, you have to help them.
Yeah.
You have to put it out there. You have to make it worth the while. Like nobody's gonna want to get into this.
Yeah.
Like, and then if you have a bunch of assholes who wants to get, you know what I'm saying? And like I said, the teachers are not even enthusiastic about teaching because they don't get paid that much.
Right.
You know, like just education all around. Education sucks, but you go somewhere like Europe or somewhere, their education is phenomenal. I'm not trying to just say they're just great, the craziest, but at least they have some joy and people, it's free.
Yeah.
People want to learn. People want to go, oh, you college, I can go learn this. Why not? You know, here, no, I don't want to go there. Gonna have a $50,000 debt on my head, and then plus the other bills I have, and then it's gonna be hard to do this, and then the teachers don't really understand, they don't really care, and blah, like, come on, man.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
Like, I would love to go back and get a master's or PhD, even though we had that conversation, just to go and get it, not for the fact of wanting to be stuck on something, but what's the point?
Yeah.
I'm not paying all that money. And then to really be honest, I don't really need it. I don't need a master's or a PhD. It doesn't prove anything, but stroke my ego. Like,
right. Exactly. That's exactly right. That is exactly right. And it's not worth it. It's
same way with certifications.
Mm-hmm. You're exactly right.
Certification? Why do you have to pay for those things?
Why are they so expensive? Because it's a racket and they know businesses demand it.
It makes no sense. The stuff that you learn, you can literally go learn it online. Literally.
And in certifications case, the stuff that they do, you learn on the job. That's the point of a certification. Certifications aren't there to teach you. That's what college is for. That's what high school is for. Certifications, you're not there to learn at all. And that is never any of their goal. Again, I've written for them. This is an industry I know well. I have a lot of certifications. None of them state the goal of this certification is so you get a better education, XYZ. No, that's not what it is. That is the goal of college. That is the goal of high school, middle school, elementary school. So let's buttress those. Let's make them good. Well, let's make it so that it's prestigious to be a teacher again.
Yeah, a professor. Yeah, it's a great thing. I would love to teach, but at the same time, like I said, like I've had teachers tell me that they literally don't care about being here. They're only doing this so they can finish their research.
Yeah, that's true.
Are you kidding me? So they didn't give a shit what you did. Like, you could cheat for they give a shit. They don't, whatever. Do whatever you want to do. And it was that was like that with my physics teacher, a lot of computer science teachers, like anybody that was a scientist, engineer, they didn't give a shit.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, they're like, wow. But like a lot of the stuff I had to learn. There were some good teachers. I had some good teachers, but at the same time, it just sucks that you had to pay for this stuff. And I think all of it should be free. And certifications, they're just not worth the money. As you said, you can learn this stuff on your job. If you stay long enough, you work hard, you will learn this. Or if there's something you don't know, hit up this guy. He knows it all. I mean, his schooling would be a lot better than what you would learn there. And if some of the tutorials that we put up there, you'll learn a lot more in those tutorials than you will learn and online at all.
That's true.
So definitely check out the tutorials that we put up because they're really, really interesting, and you can learn different techniques of things that you probably already know. But if you don't know it, you'll learn something new either way.
That's exactly right. Well, thank you so much. I hope you all have enjoyed watching our episode. And if it stirred up a little controversy or anger, I'll be all the happier because the only way this is going to get better, period, is if we have discussion.
Definitely flame him down at the bottom of the comments. You can hit up the two mutts, the 1% mutt and the 100% mutt. You can definitely flame us down there. If you like what you've seen today, please subscribe, like, comment. Let us know any other topics that you are interested in or want to hear us talk about. Please comment that down below. And until the next time, this is our time. I'm Roniel.
I'm DaRon.
See you later.
Have fun.